Hello, everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. How is everyone doing this evening? Happy and blessed Monday, and welcome back to the Welcome to Asgard podcast, today being episode 554, where tonight we're going to talk about some stuff. We've obviously got some box office from the weekend. The summer box office seems to be underway, with Final Destination Bloodlines doing pretty well. Pretty darn well, in fact, even compared up to the other Final Destination films, adjusting for inflation, even. So, very, very strong numbers for that movie. And, of course, this weekend is probably going to be one of the biggest weekends that we have seen in some months here in the North American box office, especially because we've got films Lilo and Stitch live action coming out, which, whether or not you want to see that or have any interest in that whatsoever, or whatever your thoughts on Disney, no one, I think, in the right mind is going to say that that film is not going to make bank, not only this weekend, but also long term. And it's also the final chapter, at least allegedly, of the Mission Impossible franchise, with Final Reckoning finally coming out this weekend too. Numbers not looking too good for that one, to be honest. So we'll talk about those numbers. We'll talk about, obviously, Bloodlines. And I have some thoughts on some of the films from more recent weeks. I finally got to see Sinners. I got to see Final Destination, Bloodlines. I got to see Conclave, and also Warfare. Oh, goodness, Warfare. Do I have a lot to say about that movie? Contender right now for one of the best films of 2025, in fact. But we'll get into all of that stuff tonight. And of course, your comments, your questions, all the normal stuff that we typically do here on the channel. I'm getting a lot of random notifications from my Prism Live studio. I know I updated it today. And so, of course, as soon as you update anything, it tends to break. So hopefully everything is coming through smoothly. Let me know on the various platforms, whatever platform that you are watching from, that things are going through okay. Hopefully you would have been able to tell from at least the start of the show, but if not, please give me those updates. But before we go any further, also please make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you also smash the button as well. Light up that fire button over on Odyssey, and let's go ahead and say hello to the beautiful people who are hanging out in the chat tonight. So earlier today, we had Snortopoopus Cuber. Hello, humans and other quitters. What's going on, Snortopoopus? This is at 5:49. He said, hello, I have an early day tomorrow. I need to tuck in early tonight. Have a fun stream. Thank you, Snortopoopus. I always appreciate you. Thanks for stopping by. Hope that you get a good night's sleep. Thanatos Felicitas. Hello, Odin. Hello, Thanatos. How is it going? Carl Jacobs is a member here on the channel saying, hello, chat, hello to you. Good, sir. Thank you. We got Raichu. What's up, Raichu X? Hanging out over on the Green Machine. Saying hello to everyone. Hello, Raichu. Jess Pena saying, ahoy. Thanks for the tag, man, and ahoy to you. Member General Wingster saying, hi, Snortopoopus. Jimmy A, a member. Hail, chat, and Odin. Hail to you, Jimmy A. Appreciate you being in the chat tonight. We got Kimberly G. Killian Shadowcat. What's going on, Kimberly G? She's saying, howdy, Odin, mods, and the awesome chat. I may lose my power here soon. About to. Dang, yeah, it's crazy. The storms and weather. I know that Ryan Hall, y'all, was going live earlier, and there's just a lot of storms going across the country this week. We got some of the weather last couple of days. It's just been almost nonstop rain, it feels like, for the last couple of weeks. You know, obviously we get some reprieves and we get some sunnyish days, but they don't last very long. So it's going that way here too. Though we're definitely not getting it as bad as some of the other parts of the country, especially I think it's the Oklahoma area that's especially getting hit, at least this time around. Jazz Pena saying, happy 20th anniversary to Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We're getting very close to the real Star Wars Day, in fact, of May 25th. The Morak tagging to say, good evening, sir. Good evening to you. Kincaid Rumsky saying, how's it going today? How's it going, man? Appreciate you being here. Morak saying, hail. Keely Chow saying, hey, what's going on, Keely Chow? Jeremy Sikowski, what's going on, Jeremy? Saying, hey, evening, Odin, and everyone, good evening to you. We also got Kincaid and Rumsky hanging out on the Green Machine saying here, I think I finally found a movie that might challenge the Meg 2 for the greatest action movie of all time, Kung Fury 2. Oh, goodness, they made a Kung Fury 2. I've not seen all of Kung Fury 1, or if I did, it's been a long time. I know it's the one, what is it, the first Kung Fury that features like the really big Odin, the one that is featured in the FNT, the Friday Night Tights opening credits. I'm pretty sure that's the same film. So, oh goodness, they made a sequel. I can only imagine. I can only imagine. Keely Chow tagging to say, how are you? Thor, Freya, Baby Sif doing? Also, how was your weekend? All of everyone is doing fine. All the usual stuff. Weekend was okay. I'm very much looking forward to next week, though, because it'll be my first official week of summer vacation next week. We are wrapping up exams tomorrow. We got makeup exams the day after that. And then we got the meetings that you typically have at the end of the year. So very much looking forward to next week when I get to actually get stuff done. I've gotten a little bit of that the last couple of days of obviously today and 2 days last week where we started our exams because it was like a half day. And so I got to do some work when I got home, catch up on some classes that I was started taking last summer, which was nice. I like being able to do that. It's one of those weird things where as a teacher, it's like, yeah, I like to learn over the summer. I like to read. I like to do all the things and obviously to watch movies, shows, catch up on those things, and to make rosaries as I do those things. Let's see. Ruili. What's up, Ruili, over on Green Machine? I don't think I've seen you there before, but welcome. Welcome. Saying, didn't the last Mission Impossible movie lose money? It did. Oh, yeah. So because of the massive costs that were associated with Dead Reckoning, it was a box office loser, though it was able to make up a bit more. Obviously, you have to account for after the fact, right? VOD sales, Blu-ray 4K sales, and things like that. The thing that really helped the movie, though, was they actually got a huge, I think it was actually a court victory. I don't remember if it was them. They sued because there was some coverage, like insurance, they were supposed to get, and they weren't going to be given it, and so they had to sue the company, and they ended up getting the some money back. I think they got like almost $100 million back. I mean, they still were in the red for about $100 million or less. It's been a while since I've seen that chart, but it was something that definitely helped them out quite a bit. Still in the red though, and with this movie costing like over $400 million just to produce the movie before marketing is accounted for. And the tracking right now, whatever possible upsides there may have been down the line, right? We cannot say that the last film was in any way close to a box office success because it wasn't, right? The last one lost money, at least theatrically. But any potential gains it may have had going on after the fact are going to be wiped away completely by right now the current projections on where the film likely will end up. Their huge mistake this time around is the runtime. I mean, the film being almost 3 hours when it's already the last part of a multi-part franchise. So it makes people, as far as new audiences concerned, a lot less likely to go because they're going to think, oh, I need to watch all of these movies just to catch up. And there's sometimes movies that come out that are able to kind of go past that. I think that Final Destination is a great example because even though there are, 5 other films in the franchise, because of how this one is marketed and really because of how the movie itself actually is, you don't really need to know anything about the previous films to be able to understand what's going on. It's a pretty simple concept, and it's one that I think that they take a lot of very interesting turns with this time around. But yeah, it's not going to be good for this one either. Jenna Wingster is a member saying, oh, hi, Odin. Forgot where I was. Oh, hi. Chat, we need Revenge of the Sith quotes for the 20th century anniversary stat. Do it, says Jenna Wingster. We'll see. Justin C. Hail, a little worried about Final Reckoning after hearing mixed reviews and that Dead Reckoning was the better film. I've been hearing the same thing. Now, of course, these are from early reviews, and some of them are people that I do trust, but there's also always that bit of subjectivity that can come into our reviews also. Again, when we say our one film is better than the other, it definitely seems to me, though, like the runtime is really going to be, I think, the death knell for this movie, because it means you have less showtimes available. It means you have less people that are likely going to actually see your movie. And all of these things have an impact, right? All of these things will inevitably push or pull people. And I think it's going to push more people away than it's going to pull people in, unfortunately. You sent her here to kill me. You've turned her against me. That's all I can think of anytime I think of that movie. Donald J. Skywalker, what's going on? Justin C., happy 25th to the Final Destination franchise. First film released in 2000. Whoa, okay. I forgot the first film came out around I forgot it came out in 2000. 25 years since the Final Destination film franchise started. And it's been, over a decade since the last one came out? well, big win on their part. Maybe it's always interesting. You know, we talk about it being the anniversary of Revenge of the Sith. We talk about it being, 25 years since that franchise kicked off with Final Destination. It makes you starts to make you wonder, right? Seeing where the Final Destination franchise is right now, where this film is, and how it's performing in comparison. Could we potentially be seeing a case to be made that Final Destination actually has a lesson to teach to Star Wars and to all of these massive IPs out there? That sometimes if you let things lie for a bit, you allow the heart to grow fonder, as they say, by not making movies every 5 seconds, by not trying to oversaturate the market, and also by keeping your budgets exactly where they really need to be for the kinds of movies that you have. Hey, turns out you can actually get some success from that. That seems to be the case, what's going on right now with Final Destination, and we know that Disney Star Wars, Disney MCU are nowhere near where they need to be, especially with their budgets. Dreader Wingster, Odin, I saw on the monitor him killing younglings. I hate you. Yes. You are a brother to me, Anakin. I love that y'all are quoting the film back and forth. Have you heard of the tragedy of Darth Plagueis the Wise? I know he doesn't sound like that yet, but I have to. Every time I see anything. Let's see. We allow you on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master. What? Oh, Odin, you didn't say do it. Right. Come on, man. Do it. I'm sorry. I did not know that you had I did not know that you had started at that very second. I apologize. Miss Modern Muses. Hail to you, Miss Modern Muses. Always glad to have you in the chat. Appreciate you being here. One of the chosen of Valhalla, of course. All right, let's see. Jimmy A, thanks for tagging. If the Final Reckoning is worse than Dead Reckoning, we may have a problem. Dead Reckoning was a great movie, but nowhere near the end of series quality. Well, it was because it was a cliffhanger, right? It kind of left you at a point where you're like, oh, okay, there's more to this story. And hey, Final Reckoning was quite a bit. So they could have, I think, adapted Final Reckoning, or rather, Dead Reckoning, into a better movie that could have felt more like a grand finale, but they didn't. And I think that is, it's a bit of a problem, all right? It's a bit of a problem, and it is, I think, going to unfortunately impact the box office. Again, the tracking is not looking good. We're going to look at the numbers in just a second. I almost caught up here with the chat. Let's see. King and Rumsky, don't do it. It's treason, then. Yes. All right, Gee, I saw that Superman will have a $100 million plus opening weekend. What the chance of it making $1 billion of a $100 million opening weekend? So here's the thing. $100 million domestic or $100 million worldwide? Either way, it's not a guarantee of $1 billion. I personally, at this point, do not think the film's going to make $1 billion. Now, again, that doesn't necessarily mean much of anything, because sometimes that is not always the case. I do get things wrong from time to time. But in general, most things follow historical trends. So most films, you can look at their opening weekend and you have a pretty good idea of where it'll end up going. There are exceptions. Sinners is a great example of that. I don't understand why. It's not that great of a film. However, it clearly is doing very, very well. It clearly is capturing something within the zeitgeist, something within the hearts and minds of many filmgoers, and is driving them out several times over, and having them even praise the film as somehow one of the greatest films to be made in this generation, which I, again, really just do not see. And yes, I basically said do not see. Ruili saying here, I quit Star Wars after Menace. Did I miss anything? Other than memes and a lot of hilarity, not much. I'm going to be honest. I am not a prequel defender. I don't think they're good movies. However, they are hilarious and they are very entertaining, and I give them all the credit in the world for that. All right, caught up in the chat there, so let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the box office. We'll talk first about what's going on with Final Destination. You thought I was going to say Reckoning, huh? I thought I was going to say it too. But we'll talk first about Final Destination, where it stands within the franchise of the Final Destination, and also what we likely will see going into this coming weekend. But before we can talk anything math related, you know what we got to do. You know we got to get ourselves set up, because everyone here is about to bear witness.
Time to see a real mathematician at work.
That's right, it's time to see a real mathematician at work with some math. All right, so first things first, from this past weekend, Final Destination Bloodlines just destroyed everything in its wake, making $51.6 million. Going into the weekend, the traditional tracking had the film around $35 million plus. That's what was being reported by the trades, and that's what using the more traditional modeling was indicating. Now, most of the online predictors, Box Office Report, Box Office Theory, had that bumped up quite a bit, right? They were looking more into the $38+ million range. When the case of Box Office Report, they actually had it around $48 million projected. And then you had Box Office Pro that actually had probably the most bullish claim, having the upper tier, the upper possibility around $60 million. It obviously didn't get quite there, but still made quite a bit more than what some of the others were saying. So at $51 million, this is not only the best film of the weekend as far as total box office, but even in the entire franchise, it is the best opening weekend that they've ever had. So just going back in time a little bit here. So first, these are the unadjusted numbers. Don't worry, we'll get to the adjusted numbers in just a second. But as you can see, the first Final Destination film did indeed come out in 2000. That film had a budget of $23 million. And again, that's using the money at the time that actually would be worth a lot more today. But its opening weekend was only around $10 million domestic, $16 million for number 2, $19 million for 3, $27 million for 4. And as you can see, the quality of the films seemed to have been maybe falling off a bit. People had started maybe getting a little bit bored with the same formula over and over again, because they were coming out with a new movie every 3 years or so. That's a pretty consistent amount of time. But notice how you went from 27 all the way down to 18 million for opening weekend, total domestic from 66 to 42, and worldwide box office from 187 to 155. And so they were seeing a drop-off in quality, probably a drop-off in box office too, and so they decided, hey, let's put this film on hiatus, let's put this franchise on hiatus for a little bit. It seems like it was, hey, it's a good change. It's a good change, right? It's a very good thing for them to have done that, because as you can see, opening weekend, $51.6 million is the opening domestically, right? And worldwide box office made $105.7 million at this point in time. Now, we'll go ahead and put the comparisons up here, and we do have the little adjusted for inflation thing on. And what's interesting is that I would have suspected it to be a bit closer, but it actually is not. So $51 million is Final Destination, and notice how it beats every single other Final Destination movie adjusted for inflation. All right, so you of course have Final Destination, the first film, $21 million. Number 5 was at $25 million. That was the last film before they took a little break. And as you can see, it made almost as much as the first movie. So probably good reason for them to say, all right, let's pull back for a bit. Good choice, right? Because now it's jumped all the way to 51. That's better and higher than the fourth film, $41 million, the third film, $33, and the second film, $30. So they were seeing increases all the way through. And then as soon as they saw a drop, they decided, okay, you know what, let's just go ahead and put a pause on this for a little bit. This is the formula, I think, that needs to be followed when it comes to Disney Marvel, Disney Star Wars. Because look at how well it worked. They had no Final Destination film for a very long time. They took their time with it. The budgets overall, right, stayed pretty stable, right? This film cost about $50 million to make compared to the other movies. Hey, the first film on the, using today's metrics would have cost around $48 million. The most expensive of them would have been the Final Destination 2009, which cost around $60 million. But they've always kept it in that $40 to $50 million range, again, adjusted for inflation, as far as the value is concerned. And that's all you needed, right? They didn't need to increase their budgets. They didn't need to try to make the films any more than what they needed to be. They knew their audience. They knew what their audience enjoyed. They knew, especially when it comes to this franchise, it's all about, hey, let's try to create the most ridiculous kills as possible, using the most ridiculous things we can of chain of events leading to someone's death. That's why people want the franchise. People who like that gory, bloody violence that is not meant to try to tell you a compelling story, but is just there to entertain you, right? And the film is very entertaining. I've seen Bloodlines myself, and overall I liked it. I'll give more thoughts on that in a little bit. But this is a formula that really should be followed, right? Again, since the last movie came out in 2011, right, 14 years has gone by. 14 years. Imagine if a Star Wars film took 14 years off in the modern era. That would be more than enough time to make people maybe actually start to say, you know what, we haven't had one in a while, maybe they should try it. Even if Disney still owned it, mind you. Now, again, I know that might be asking a lot, But at least if we knew that their choice to hold off on it was an active one, right, that they actually were choosing to hold off on it for a bit, we might actually be more willing to say, okay, let's see what they have, right? 14 years is a long time. That's enough time for Kathleen Kennedy's to be out of there. It's enough time for Bob Iger to be gone, right? That's enough time for a lot of changes to happen creatively and administratively to potentially lead to some people actually being, hey, you know what? Maybe we are ready for one again. I think Bloodlines is a really good example of what can happen if you allow the heart to grow a little bit fonder. So kudos to them for pulling off something very impressive. Now, we do, of course, have my Chots, because we love Chots here on OMB Reviews. Now, these are numbers based off of the box office mojo, and it just literally, as we were coming over here, updated in real time because, again, box office mojo just acts that way. So an actual opening weekend of $105 million, that's $3 million better than what was initially projected. So that's another $3 million international and another $600,000 domestic, so definitely ticked up better there. Now, it did cost $50 million, so it still has to make a little bit more to break even, but the fact that it's already $24 million in the red, it's already cut a lot of that cost quite a bit, right? The break even's at $150 million. It's going to easily do that. If not by this Friday, then at the very least by the end of this weekend, right? Even with massive films like Lilo and Stitch coming out, not the same audience, not going to impact it. Mission Impossible, Final Reckoning, some crossover audience, maybe, but genre-wise, no. So Bloodlines is actually going to be probably okay. It's probably going to see a decent hold from week to week, especially because it's getting some pretty positive reviews overall, right? In fact, I myself gave this film a 65%. I gave it a rad score. And it really comes down to the fact that, hey, it's a throwback. It's a throwback to the OG Final Destination and also to the type of films that we just don't really see a lot anymore, right? The gore-filled, clever ways to die type of movie, right? That has become famous and synonymous with the Final Destination franchise. And it says right here, right? It has a great opening weekend for the film, both based on the box office. And I will say, right, there is bad CGI. The CGI in the film is pretty bad. It's pretty cringeworthy, in fact. However, because it's showing you the most ridiculous things, and because it knows the kind of movie it is, it knows the kind of story it's trying to tell, you as an audience are already willing to suspend your belief. You're already willing to buy into the story because you know exactly what you're getting. This is something that I feel like a lot of these companies, these franchises, these studios don't know. They don't know their audience anymore. And it's sad because when you think about what films in general do well consistently, it's the horror films, right? It's the, you know, whether it's the bloody gore fest movies or just the general horror, just horror in general, they always tend to do very, very well, no matter how many films come out, no matter how monotonous it might be getting. Now, over time, that definitely eats away at your total audience, but it's a pretty consistent one. And I think it's because most of the filmmakers in that genre know what their fans want and give the fans what they want. Isn't that an amazing concept? Isn't that such an interesting thing? Imagine if MCU started actually doing that, right, in a very real way. Imagine if Star Wars started doing that, right? Imagine if instead of the sequel trilogy, we had gotten the Thrawn trilogy. Oh, goodness. Could you imagine how massive those projects could have been? Especially if they had done it well, especially if they had actually done it with competent people, right? If the same people who they used for the sequel trilogy had been behind the Thrawn trilogy, probably wouldn't have ended up that way because they would have made changes and that would have made people angry. Final Destination, though, hey, it takes the same idea, that same trope of, oh, if you happen to survive an event, death will eventually come back to get you, right? That's the whole concept of the Final Destination in general, right? In this case, it actually goes through the line of, hey, a bunch of people survived this event. Not only did they start dying, but because they were not supposed to live, and because so much time passed, because they had families and children, that the curse then goes on to them because, hey, they're not supposed to exist either. And how they play that out and explain it, I think is, again, for what the kind of movie that is very effective. And the fact that it's called Bloodlines, again, very on the nose, but also very appropriate for exactly what it is. Now, again, it's very gory. I don't recommend this for most people. But if you like gory, or if you've liked the Final Destination movies before, if you don't mind gore, especially really bad CGI gore, this might be a good film for you. And I was very much entertained. There's especially a great sequence involving let's just say a machine, an MRI machine. And it's one of those things where gone are the days where you know something's going to happen. You just don't know exactly what's going to happen. That's what this movie is. Because the whole time you're like, okay, what's going to happen? All right, is this thing going to fall? Is this thing going to happen? And then as they unfold, you're like, ooh, okay. Some of them are good. Some of them are better than others. But oh yeah, it is. My favorite might actually be one of the first ones that happens though, where this girl gets basically hit by a soccer ball and gets thrown into a trash can just to get dumped into a garbage. It's ridiculous. It's so ridiculous. But again, it knows exactly the kind of movie that it wants to be. And hey, audience is clearly responding. You don't get to $51 million in today's world. You don't get to the best opening in franchise history, especially domestically, maybe even globally. Again, it's hard to keep track of those numbers and to always be able to account for those things. But man, huge win for them. Thunderbolts is still number 2 film, but I mean, this movie is not going to break even. I can say that for a fact. This film will end up being a box office flop. I do still think there's enough gas in the tank for it to be able to catch up to and maybe even beat Captain America Brave New World, but that's not really saying much. Since they cost the same, we all know Captain America costs a lot more than that, but still, the fact that they're still $180 million projects, those are not good numbers there. Sinners holds incredibly well, once again, adding theaters, in fact, after 5 weeks. I mean, this movie is destroying Thunderbolts and also Captain America Brave New World. I mean, not even close in those comparisons. Minecraft hanging around, Accountant 2 hanging around as well. That's another film that I need to watch. It's on my list of things to check out. And that leads then to what's going to happen this weekend. So I think Final Destination is going to hold on pretty well. But will it, or rather, what else is going to happen this weekend? So there are a few different films coming out. We got The Last Rodeo from Angel Studios coming out, which I think is another Neil McDonough starring film. So Angel Studios, those tend to be single-digit openings. They don't typically cost a whole lot of money, especially since a lot of it's backed by their supporters. So anything they make at the box office is essentially, adding on to profits there. But we also know that they really haven't been very consistent in making much there either. But again, they use a very different metric for what they consider successful. According to my metrics, it's not really all that good. The big movies, though, are going to be Lilo and Stitch and Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning. Now, here's the most interesting part to me. Lilo and Stitch projected to make somewhere between 115 and 132 million just domestically, with a total domestic range, right, where it's going to end between 350 on the low end and 509 on the top end. I'm going to say right now, Lilo and Stitch, I think, has a very strong chance of being a $1 billion film. I think it will be the first $1 billion film of the summer. I think there will be a few $1 billion films this year. And I think that Disney is going to be a part of most of them. There's also, speaking of Disney, going to be some of the biggest box office flops, though, of the year, right? Thunderbolts being a great example, but even more so, whenever we hopefully find out one day what the actual budget was for Captain America Brave New World, that is going to be probably one of the biggest flops, but not bigger. This is the crazy part. As big of a flop, even with the more realistic $350 million plus budget of what that movie had, Final Reckoning might end up being a bigger loser. And it's because look at the opening weekend projected right now for Final Reckoning. Only 59 to 67 million. So they're not expecting this film to get to $100 million domestically in its opening weekend, right? 65 million is their pinpoint forecasting at Box Office Theory. Total domestic, 175 to 225. That means you're looking at maybe, $400 to $500 million globally? That I think would be about where you saw the last film to come out. Let me see if I can pull that up really quick just to get us kind of a bit of, okay, what can we expect for this? I think they're still, I guess the good thing is that they're not doing the really bad opening that they did last time, where they opened it like on a Monday and then it came out on a Tuesday, and then it was very confusing. And people kind of dismiss that to say, oh, that's not as big of a deal as some other things, but it does matter. I mean, again, when people know a film is coming out on a Thursday, that level of anticipation, that level of planning that can go into it of, oh, this is the premiere night, is a pretty big deal. Now, I think there's a fan event screening for this on Thursday where it'll be a little bit earlier in the day, maybe around 2 o'clock, and you get some like free stuff, the possibility of winning some free stuff too. But yeah, so yeah, Dead Reckoning Part 1. Let's go ahead and pull that up just to see. So that film, only made $565 million worldwide, and off of a budget of $290 million was what was being reported. Now, again, I think this is the adapted one after they got their tax incentive. It was only 2 times their budget, right? To break even in today's world, you need 3 times your budget to break even. That didn't happen for this movie. Now, again, it did pretty well historically compared to some other films with its kind of opening weekend, but it only opened at 54 million. So we're looking at right now Final Reckoning, based off of at least box office theories, to have a better opening, actually. If the metrics continue, right? It will have a better opening, at least on paper, compared to Dead Reckoning Part 1, now just known as Dead Reckoning because, oh goodness, that name, even this name, Mission Impossible The Final Reckoning, is still quite a bit of a mouthful. But with the long-term projections especially, this is where I see the biggest problem for the movie. Because it's looking like, again, 225 is the high end for the current tracking. That's better than what we saw for Dead Reckoning Part 1. But is the international going to be any better? Is there still going to be that interest? I think that Tom Cruise and most of the action films he's in do tend to have some appeal to those international audiences. So we could end up seeing maybe a little bit of a higher tick there. But it's not looking good. All right, because even if it does better than Part 1 of this franchise, or even if it does better, than Dead Reckoning, right? They didn't change the name on here yet. It still cost like $400 million just to make the most recent Final Reckoning movie. So even if it does only marginally better than the first one in this finale, because of how much more that movie cost to make, the losses are going to be staggering. Anyway, that's the update on what's going on at the box office currently, what's going to happen this weekend as well. And let's go ahead and jump back into the chat. See some love for Tony Todd. Absolutely rest in peace, Tony Todd. It was really cool seeing him in the film because I had seen the originals a long time ago. Again, the first one came out in 2000. So I was in middle school when the first one came out. So obviously it was very much talked about. I didn't see it, I think maybe until I was in high school. And then I saw maybe one or two of them. So I'm not a huge fan of the franchise. There's several I have not watched. So I was able to watch this movie, Bloodlines, and still enjoy it, even without having that knowledge. And I thought he looked familiar, but in the movie, it's good because it actually tells you a bit more about his character. And it's enough for you to, you don't have to know who he was from the previous movies to know, here's his role in this individual release. So I thought that was really cool. All right, let's go ahead and jump back into the chat. Let's see. Guy says here, I heard that Captain Gantu won't be in the Lilo and Stitch live action. People are mad. Would this affect the box office? Probably not much. Because here's the thing. There's going to be changes. There's going to be differences. But based on the trailers, it looks like the core of the film is still present. The core of the film is still being respected. And because of that, even if it's mediocre, I think $1 billion. And here's why. Look at what happened it was an animated movie, but look what happened with Moana 2. Moana 2 was not a great film. Moana 2 got very middling reviews. Most people who saw it said, the original's a lot better. Still made over $1 billion. So I think that is going to be something that potentially drives that film ahead forward. Even a film like Mufasa. Mufasa wasn't very good, but because it appeals to those kids, that kid demographic, that family demographic, it was actually able to leg out to do a lot better than anyone could have anticipated. Nowhere near the amount that the first Lion King, quote, live action did. But yeah, I think that and if these projections hold, that's the big if the projections hold, it's going to make bank, it's going to make $1 billion. Jimmy A, The Flash had good projections but fell like a rock. Superman could easily see the same thing happen. So here's where you're a bit wrong, Jimmy A. The Flash did not have as good of projections as you might be remembering. I think that they looked good on paper because the DCEU never had good box office. People might think that they did, and obviously people will always point out Aquaman 1. Yeah, that film made $1 billion, but it was the only DC film, the DC live action DCEU, to hit that mark at that time. So it was always very limited in the reach that it had and the audience that it had. The Flash, it may have been projected to do better than what it did, but it was never looking good. It was never looking good. Superman, as I said, right, at least box office theory, to my knowledge, does not have Superman on the radar yet. So I don't know who's projecting it, but it's a little too far out to be projecting that one. Because think about it, right? Box office theory tracks 5 weeks. So that's more than 5 weeks away that movie comes out, right? Box office theory's tracking goes all the way through the end of June. Superman doesn't come out, until July? So any tracking on that is going to be it's way too early to have any sense of confidence. I mean, pre-sales, have they even started yet? And if they have, barely. So there's still a long way to go with that one. I don't suspect it's going to be $1 billion film, though. Carl J goes, it's a good thing Disney is not controlling its budgets. That's the only thing driving the possibility of change. Disney is not controlling its budgets. I mean, possibly, but they have so much money, unfortunately, that they're able to get away with it for quite a long time. Keely Chow saying, in my Scott Steiner voice, they say all movie studios are created equal, but you look at Warner Brothers and Disney and you can see the statements is not true. But here's the funny thing. People are saying about how big of a win this is for Warner Brothers. And look, Sinners is doing well. Final Destination's doing well. But they've had their fair share of problems too. Okay? They have their own issues. And in fact, let me go ahead and pull up the reports again. Because, let's see. Yeah, Sinners is doing well. Minecraft's doing well. Final Destination Bloodline is doing well, of course. But I'm trying to think about what other films that they had this year. Because they're like hit and miss. They have a lot more hits now, more recently, than they have had recently. But their story is also a bit of a roller coaster, to be honest. A best prequel quote, no. See, Ruli says, Final Destination stayed true to their source material. Star Wars and Marvel didn't. That's another good point. Gary Banjo Sandwich, the word isn't hail to you, Gary Banjo Sandwich, saying, I love the Final Destination movies. They have their audience, and they know exactly what their audience wants. Hardwick, I don't understand how Ryan Coogler could make a movie featuring both vampires and the Triple K, but without a single flaming cross. That part practically writes itself. Yeah, there's a lot of issues with the writing for Sinners. And I understand why people are enjoying the movie. Because technically speaking, it is very good. The technical aspects of the filmmaking are very good. Acting, very, very good. And there's even elements of the story that are also good. However, it's also a pretty big white elephant in the room as far as the general tone and the general messaging of the movie as well. But I digress. Keely Chow, I'm a Cowboys fan, and it's time for Jerry Jones to be out as general manager of the Cowboys. Okay. What? What does that have to do with anything we've been talking about? CM Chunk, it's been 6 years since the last Star Wars movie. I'm totally cool with them taking another 8 years off. Dude, that is kind of crazy to think about. Because it honestly feels like the Rise of Skywalker came out just yesterday, or even just a year or two ago. But I think you're right. I think it was, man, has it actually only been 6 years? Did that film really come out in 2019? My goodness. And that's why they're going to get the wrong idea, because the next Star Wars film we have, at least projected to be coming out, when it comes to Star Wars projects, it's like, okay, I'll believe it when I see it, is the Grogu movie, I believe. And that film is going to make money as far as its opening weekend is concerned, because Grogu will sell tickets. People may not want to hear that, but hey, the reason why Mandalorian was as successful as it was because of Baby Yoda. It was because of Grogu. Because people who did not watch the show bought the merchandise. That's just what happened, especially girls. They're like, oh, Baby Yoda's so cute. Oh, it's so cute. And they bought the toys. They didn't want to watch the show necessarily. They didn't have as much motivation to actually see the series of Mandalorian, but they sure wanted the Baby Yoda stuff. That might be enough, right? Now, could have the same effect, though, where, a lot of people are interested, but it's because they want the merchandise that's going to come out, not necessarily because they want to see the movie. And the movie is an easier sell because you're not having to sit down and watch a lot of episodes and everything like that. But, yeah, there's homework attached to that one that could hold it back, too. Jimmy A, taking time off between sequels can be a good thing. Accountant 2 bombed, but it got great word of mouth. Yeah. That's a great example of how it doesn't always guarantee you success. Yes, the good word of mouth is good, right? And it being generally accepted as a good movie is good. Could, being a key factor, could mean huge success in VOD and physical media sales. But I think the issue there was the budget. Had they maybe tempered their budget a bit, it could have actually ended up a lot better for them. Will Riker 94, what's going on? See, General Wingster, his member saying here, Final Destination 2 caused a whole generation of fear driving behind logging trucks. That right? Okay, I always forget which one did that. And the marketing that they did for this recent one too, where they were using logging trucks to promote the film, genius, brilliant. Yeah, I love how it's like generational trauma caused, and it's true. No one wants to drive behind those trucks now. Anytime I'm on the interstate, anytime I'm going on a trip, and I see one of those things, I'm like, nope, I'm getting out of this lane. I am not traveling behind this one. Because it's like, I know what happens. Oh, man. Let's see. Jimmy A. Talking of Mission Impossible, I must admit, Mission Impossible 2 is a guilty pleasure. Doesn't fit with the franchise, but on its own terms, it's a fun, dumb movie. Also, Hobbs and Shaw stole its plot from the movie. Oh, yeah, Hobbs and Shaw is garbage. But Mission Impossible 2, I would agree with you. It's not a good film, but oh, is it entertaining? Because it is of its time. It is of the era, from the soundtrack to the way the film is shot, everything about it. Jeremy Zakowski says, Tony Todd made an unscripted goodbye speech in this movie. I thought it was well done and really did hit me. Yeah, I kind of wanted to rewatch that scene because I had heard people mentioning Tony Todd because, again, I'm not a huge fan of the franchise, and so I'm going to be honest, I didn't really know who that was in the context of the universe. And after the fact, I was like, oh, I saw they have the little in memoriam at the end, right, in memory of Tony Todd. And so I then looked into it further, and then I was like, oh, okay, I recognize this guy now. And so you're right. He gives this beautiful speech. And so part of me kind of does wonder. I think you have something. I'm wondering if, I don't know what Tony Todd had passed away of. Obviously, I know that he was older. But I kind of wonder, maybe he was pretty thin in the film. So was he already sick? I don't know. A lot of y'all probably know a lot more than I do on that. Keely Chow leaving early. How dare you? Yeah, R.I.P. to Tony Todd. Absolutely. Maybe perpetual light shine upon him. Jimmy A. Mission Impossible should have stopped with Fallout. I have an idea it was meant to be the last one since the ending felt definitive. They saw the money and planned 2 more, if you ask me. Yeah, I mean, I think Fallout is good. I think Ghost Protocol might be one of my favorites. Something about that movie is good. Fallout's good. But it was kind of like that drip. Like, to me, it was like Ghost Protocol you could argue like was kind of like at that peak, and then it just slight step downs every point after, and now it's just and here's the thing, I liked Dead Reckoning. I enjoyed it quite a bit, but I also understood why a lot of people didn't watch it, why a lot of people had no desire to kind of throw themselves into that world, because it is a lot of homework attached to it. It is promoted as a film where you have to kind of know the characters and where they come from. I do think there's an element where anyone could probably go and watch and enjoy it and not have to really know everything, but you're not going to really enjoy it as much if you don't understand those relationships that are built over the course of several different movies. See, really tagging to say, is it possible to see if there is a spike in online sales of Mission Impossible Part 1 triggered by Part 2? I mean, if there is, I don't know of it. I don't really track online sales, because here's the thing. A lot of these companies do not want to actually give you some real data. It's a lot of third-party tracking software maybe and tracking data where it's like guesstimates and it's movements, but it's not actual like, oh, here's how many exact copies were sold on this day. I wish, if they had some more straightforward stuff, my job would be so much easier. I would totally jump into the VOD sale game. But because they're always very coy and very close to the chest with a lot of that stuff, almost impossible to know. Jess Pena says, do yourself a favor and don't watch the 4th Final Destination. Sure, there's some gruesome death scenes in there, but overall the movie sucks. Yeah, I think a lot of people said that, was it the 3rd film is their favorite in many cases? And then the 4th and 5th kind of fall off. I don't know. I've not seen all of them. Cthulhu. Happy Monday and wish you all well. The big question is, will Lilo and Stitch remove the dryer for the pizza boxes once again? That's a great question. Will she get inside of a dryer, or will they use pizza boxes? Or will they have the dryer and then after the fact in post-production, edit it? Now that would be very meta of them to do that. I kind of hope there's like a joke to it. It'd be really funny if she looks at a dryer and thinks about getting in there and then thinks twice about it and then goes into the pizza box, because then it's like, oh, that's fun. Like, that could be a fun moment for people who remember that. Let's see. Hardwick tagging to say, I was surprised when I found out that Vanessa Kirby isn't going to be in the final reckoning. Apparently she was going to be, but got cut out for scheduling reasons. Wasn't she kind of a part of the plot and a major character? I don't think they killed her character off. I wonder what they'll do with that. Victor Fontaine, come fly with me, come fly away. Caveat ties, welcome. Victor Fontaine saying, and Disney is going to leave Lilo and Stitch in the theaters all summer, which will help it to hit that $1 billion. I don't think they'll need to, though. I think it'll actually hit it pretty quickly on its own. I think that if it, for any reason, I mean, if the movie's bad, that's going to affect it, okay? Quality of the film does still have some impact on box office. Not as much, necessarily, right? Because a lot of things can happen. But, yeah. I don't think they're going to have to force it. I think that they're going to be in theater. This is one of those few occasions where Disney, which is a very pushy company and does a lot of practices that I think are despicable when it comes to theaters, where honestly, I don't think the theaters are going to mind as much, because I think that this one's actually going to produce. The problem with Disney is when they push these films on their theaters and they force them to basically have to take on X amount of show times, X amount of 3D showings, etc., for a movie that doesn't sell. Because then the theater's just stuck with it, and it's like, oh, okay, now we have to show this dang film that no one wants to watch. That's not going to be the case with Lilo and Stitch. Jimmy A. Warner Bros. Will occasionally put out hits to make up for their flops. Minecraft, Final Destination, Sinners will maybe put up the losses of Joker. Here's the thing, though. The profits, to my knowledge, that they make typically aren't a whole lot more than the losses. They have a lot more in losses than they have in gains, okay? And the other thing, too, a lot of their biggest hits, they don't get 100% of the profits. I'm not even talking about the theater split, okay? I'm saying Barbie. Guess what? They had to split profits with Mattel. Minecraft, they're splitting profits there, too. So even of the profits that we can account for, they're not getting all of it. And so that does cut into their bottom line a bit. Now, do I think that that means that they are flopping and that they're in these massive losses territory? Well, no, because again, I need to get the charts on that to see for sure how their 2024 was, how their 2025 is going. Right now, their 2025 is going really good, right? Their 2025 is stellar right now. I mean, Minecraft, bigger than anyone could have expected. I think still has a chance to hit $1 billion. I think it's going to have to force its way there, but it's again, it has. I'm still thinking it. All right, I know people are kind of, you're a bit crazy there. I still think it has something for that, especially with the summer months now starting up, and it's still in a lot of theaters, right? Still in thousands of theaters across the country. So you have Minecraft, right, which is making a lot of money. Final Destination, which for its budget especially is going to break even by next weekend. And then Sinners, to me, is the big win. But think about how much bigger of a win Sinners could have been had they not spent $90 to $100 million on that movie, where you did not need to spend that much money. Master of Gaming, Tony Todd is for Final Destination Bloodlines, what Paul Walker is for Furious 7. I would disagree a bit there, because I think the death of Paul Walker actually destroyed Furious 7. Furious 7, if we're going to really be objective about the movie, Furious 7 is not a good movie. The only thing people like about the film, for the most part, is the tribute at the end. And it's a great tribute. All right. I don't like how they do it in movie, personally. I actually would have liked if they had maybe broken kayfabe, had they actually broken the fourth wall even, and done an actual tribute to the man, Paul Walker, and not to the character. I know that's a matter of opinion, but I would disagree, because I think Tony Todd and his death did not affect the final results of the movie to any massive degree. And Bloodlines is actually a very entertaining movie. Fury 7, however, because they had to change so much because of his death, especially, it really hurt the film. Jimmy A, that girl impression was hilarious. We got to get that more often. No, Jimmy A, no. Hardwick, my criticalist review of Sinners details some of the most notable problems with the messaging of the movie. It's essentially the inversion of the prodigal son story. Yeah. Victor Fontaine, the daughter was never a Star Wars fan. It didn't watch the movies, but wanted a baby Yoda. There it is. Really saying, so Baby Yoda won't be allowed to grow up. He is out of the band once he hits 20. Yeah, they're going to hold that for a long time. Jess Pena says, I heard Tony Todd had cancer. I would believe it. I would definitely believe it because he looked pretty sick in the film, to be honest. Jimmy A, I was watching part of Infinity War on TV, watching the snap and seeing Chadwick Boseman disappear aged very poorly. It just felt really uncomfortable. Interesting. Hardwick, my favorite Mission Impossible movie is still Rogue Nation. I think the Opera House scene is still the best scene of the franchise. Nice. Victor Fontaine saying, yeah, Tony Todd had stomach cancer. The reason he was so thin. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Whew. In hindsight, especially, you're like, oh man, you could really see it. General Wingster, fourth one is garbage. Fifth is actually pretty solid. Okay. Interesting that they ended with a solid one, but I think because fourth one was so garbage, that's probably what hurt 5. And because 5 was going downward, even though it was a better film, Jess Pena seems to agree, saying that 5th actually was okay. Makes sense as to why they would actually have taken a break then, to let things heal a bit. But no, going back to Tony Todd, so yeah, I think that probably influenced his performance in the movie because he actually probably was saying goodbye because he probably had a pretty good idea that he was not long for this world. It's one of those things where it's like it's dark, but it's also one where you're like, okay, I'm kind of happy he was able to get some kind of, catharsis maybe, especially with the audience and the fans that would have appreciated him more so than anyone else. Victor Fontaine saying, I got the Final Destination 5 movie Blu-ray set on $13 price drop. 4 and 5 were not good. Oh, okay. Victor Fontaine does not think 5 was at least okay. Will Riker adding here, for me, Final Destination 5, excellent. Final Destination 1, 2, and 3, car excellent, as well as 4 is a dumpster fire. So everyone seems to be universal in their hatred of 4. You know what that means? Somewhere out there is a man named Alex McCarthy, and you all know who he is. He is a longtime subscriber here. He's still around, but obviously he's going through some health issues, and so he can't be in as many places as he used to be. But J. Alex McCarthy Jr., as I like to call him, he was notorious for his bad movie takes. He always loved the worst films. And the thing that started all off was that he thought R.I.P.D. was a good film. So it sounds to me like in the case of Final Destination, he probably would love 4. 4 probably would actually be his favorite. It would be very on brand for him if that was actually the case. Alex McCarthy, if you are out there, if you're listening to this back in any way, if anyone knows Alex McCarthy well enough to reach out to him, ask him that question. Hey, do you like Final Destination franchise? And if so, where do you rank 5? Do you hate it like everybody else? Mother Forget saying, hey, Odin, is there a film recently you did not know much about going in, but you took a flyer on and really enjoyed it? Let's see. I guess that can actually lead us into a conversation about the films that I have been watching. Because I think there's one in there that I wouldn't say I knew nothing about it, but it was definitely one that I was surprised by quite a bit. So obviously Final Destination Bloodlines, I really enjoyed it, or I mentioned my review going into the box office for it. But yeah, if you really don't mind gore, if you like the other Final Destination movies, I think you'll enjoy this one. All right, this is coming from someone who's only seen. I know I've seen the first one. I think I've seen the second one because of the logs. But I don't think I've seen the others. But it's one where it's always like very, very silly. Like, oh my goodness, how could these events ever perfectly align so well to cause this death? But that's the whole point, right? That's the whole point of the film, and that's why it's fun in that way. Right now, it's doing really well on critic list too. Right, not only is it doing well at the box office, part of why and how it's doing as well as it is at the box office. Also, for some reason, critic list has been slow. I don't know if it's my computer or my internet connection, because I've been getting some random notifications about my internet connection not being great, but no one's been complaining, so I am assuming I'm coming through okay. But as of right now, 74% rad score, 27 votes. So very solid score for Final Destination Bloodlines. So very passionate audience, it seems, for it. Another franchise that has a lot of passionate audience members is the film Sinners, of which I did not enjoy. Now, when I first posted my review, I had only seen about half the movie at that point, okay? And as I said, while I can appreciate some of the technical skill in things like the cinematography, the score, and most of the acting, the overuse of language and scenes of lust are at times way too much and incredibly awkward. We will see how things pick up. People have taken issue with my comments here because and here's the best part. Their number one response and defense is, well, it's not even like it's nudity. But it's not nudity. I didn't say anything about nudity. There are absolutely several scenes featuring lust and are very uncomfortable. I mean, to the point where I was like, oh, wow. Like, actual physical reaction. And you can make the argument of, well, it is called Sinners, Odin, right? It is called that after all. Yeah, doesn't mean that we have to see it. Doesn't mean that we have to watch it. And I always call that out. I called it out during Oppenheimer when Christopher Nolan added the random sexual depravity to the movie that was completely unnecessary. I would argue it's also unnecessary here too. I think it's not good for our culture to continue to push that nonsense, but I digress. I finally finished the movie though, and as you can see, I gave it a 30% bogus score. And why is it as high as that? And yes, I will say it that way. It says, now that I have finished the film, I can say that kudos should be given to the effects and makeup teams and to the production of the in-movie songs. However, my initial feelings remain the same. The film is just not as original or special as people make it out to be, and there are no doubt overt and even subversive commentaries on what it means to be black, and the whole white devil trope is literally played out for everyone to see. The main bad guy, the main vampire, is literally this Irish white guy who starts it all and is the main bad guy and is singing. Giving this the lowest bogus score I can while still seeking to praise the many good technical elements. And again, the technical elements are absolutely there. Political bias, I say this very left. Another movie set in times of slavery and Jim Crow era. Great. As the film goes on, it becomes clear how much of a story about race this movie really is. And that's the other thing too. I don't know about you guys, but I know for me, I'm just tired of it. Why is it that we have to have movies featuring black actors that has to be about this in some way? Like, can we not move past this? Can we not tell more original stories that don't rely on this? I don't think we can. Banjo Sandwich disagrees with me quite a bit. A lot of people, in fact. It's one of the worst ratios that I've had, but I don't do this for the ratios. I do it because at the end of the day, again, technically speaking, it's a beautiful, well-done movie. Story's not good. And there's a lot of overt, I would argue, racism, and not in the way that's presented in the movie. Anyway, getting to the film, though, that someone asked, like, was there a film that kind of surprised me? Yeah, Warfare. Oh, my goodness, Warfare. Alex Garland, who did Civil War last year, he seems to be on a war trend. But what's great about this movie is that it's not just directed by him, it's co-directed. So someone who is a veteran co-directed this movie with him, and it's based off of the accounts of soldiers. So it's based off of the actual memories and stories of real soldiers and of this one specific day where they are in a unfriendly area and they have to find a way to survive and to help each other and to try their very best to make it through and to help their brothers in war. And I gave this film a most excellent 80% score here. And I said, I finally got around to seeing this film, and I'm happy to say the movie easily lives up to the hype. It's a raw, disturbing, and powerful telling of the lives of soldiers in combat on a day when they get attacked and have to face the fear for their very lives. The movie features powerful acting, incredible cinematography, and visuals, and what could easily be one of the best sound designs for a movie I have heard in a long time. And seriously, the sound design is impeccable. You feel like you're there. You feel everything that these guys feel when there is a huge explosion that happens in the film, and all you hear is like the ring noise and the muffled sound. It's done to perfection. And it is, again, so effectively used too. It doesn't feel like how oftentimes movies will like put random sounds in to try to like, create some artificial sense of things. It just feels real. It feels very authentic. Again, that word raw, I think really suits this movie very well. The movie also, as I said, is not for the faint of heart and could easily be too much for some people, including anyone who may have served in the military, as it plays incredibly realistic, which makes sense as it is co-written and co-directed by a veteran. And again, Anyone who might be suffering from PTSD, I think it's that realistic. This film is a great reminder of why we should always be grateful for those that have served in our military, whether we support the wars they fight in or not. At the end of the day, the horrors that many of them have had to face in the line of duty must be witnessed and appreciated. And again, I still feel that way. That's why I'm not usually as harsh on violence as I am on the sexual stuff, because especially when it comes to war films, I think it is important for us to kind of know and understand what is going on. Luckily, the film is not political at all. It just tells the story, right? There are soldiers. There's a family whose house is taken over, right? A Middle Eastern family whose house is taken over, but it doesn't overtly go out of its way to make them into bad guys, right? It doesn't overtly go out of its way to really choose sides in any of it. It just shows you, hey, this is the horrors of war. And I know for me, I'm already very like anti-war guy, and much of what we see in here is part of that reason. Right? We should not be having our soldiers go into these places and do the things that they're doing and put their very lives at risk for something that we should not be fighting for. Right? It's one thing if we're fighting for our country. If there's one thing if we're defending our own country. It's another if we are occupying other areas that we should have no business being in, because it leads to senseless violence and the lives of so many soldiers lost. Again, it's not on them. It's the politicians that put us in these wars. And that's why, again, it's not political. It doesn't go there. I'll go there, right? Because I have a very anti-war stance, but very powerful movie. Recommend it highly. Again, phenomenal acting. And then a very quick word on one other film. I finally saw Conclave. I may have mentioned this because I saw this back in like end of April, but I gave it a bogus score because I'm going to be honest, it's very unrealistic to what actual conclaves are like. It gets way too political for what an actual conclave is. Again, we're not saying there's not like what we would consider political machinations that happen, but it goes way too extreme and to the point where it's very anti-Catholic. Like basically there's one cardinal who's a quote traditional cardinal who like actually follows the tradition of the church and everything, and they paint him in the worst way possible. They basically turn him into a racist. And so it's like, okay, clearly this film hates Catholicism, hates Catholics, and really just does not know. It honestly feels like a movie made by someone who either is not Catholic and is just like, oh, this is what I perceive Catholicism to be, or someone who is probably a fallen away Catholic and so therefore has no love lost on the church. Anyway, those are my thoughts. But yeah, Warfare, highly recommend. If there's any film that I think should be watched this year, it is that movie. No question about it whatsoever. All right. CM Chunk tagged to say, Final Destination 5 is the only movie I didn't see in theaters because 4 was so bad. 5 is a solid movie. Interesting. Very interesting. Sorry, one of my dogs is... Hey. I think one of my dogs has some type of yeast infection. So she keeps licking herself. It's okay, Willow. I will take you to the vet soon. Because I finally have time. There's time now. I feel like the guy from Time Enough at Last from The Twilight Zone. But there was time now. It's okay. You're doing okay. All right. As soon as I start petting her and showing her attention, though, she's like, don't stop. Now she's thirsty. All right, Bruce. I'm currently watching Fallout, and I find it not bad so far. I watched the first episode and just had no interest in watching anything more. So, Guy, what do you mean you watched Half of Sinners? Did you walk out because you did not like it for the first time? No, digital. Jimmy A, what are your thoughts on the fact that some Christians/Catholics like Lecrae and Breaking the Habit defending the movie Sinners? Breaking the Habit, okay, so Breaking the Habit, isn't that, what's his name? Isn't he one of the Franciscans? He wears like a brown habit. I honestly think he's a terrible representation of the church. I think there's a lot of problems with his channel. In general, I'm not going to say much more. I don't want to be uncharitable towards anybody, but if he's defending it, I can't say I'm that surprised, but also that's not a very good representative of the church to be saying something positive about it. I don't know of Lecrae, so I can't speak to them. But again, are there elements of the film and of the story that are good? Again, I was getting into a debate with Epic Mike. Shout out to Mike. On the film, because he liked the film quite a bit. And at one point, the argument was going through like, I was trying to bring up the point that there's very clearly a very racial, story going on here. to the point of it, again, white man bad. And the argument was made of, oh, you actually thought that was the story. And I'm like, no. I didn't say that was the story. I didn't say that that was even the main story. But it is a story, right? There's a lot of different storylines and story arcs going on throughout. Some of them are good, but that one still is there too. And it's just so tired. It's such a tired story. You okay? You had too much water. Sorry, Willow came back, so I got to give her attention. But yeah, that storyline is there though. And it's just, again, it's such a tired one. It really is. Let's see. General Wingster, Odin's playing the meta. Huh? I'm tired of racist Hollywood beating up on white men. Yep. CM Chunk, I've heard a lot of people say they hate message movies, defend the racism message in Sinners by pointing out the time period it's set in. Yeah, I've heard that too. The issue is that it just once again brings up the same old thing, though, where it's like, okay, so it's still a movie about black people being oppressed by white people. And in this story, it's also a supernatural one with vampires. And the main vampire who starts it all is a white man. And who's the first person in this group to be attacked? It's someone who I think is what she's supposed to be. It's actually very interesting that they have it happen this way, where the actress that plays the girl is supposed to be like a quarter black, I think. And you're like, oh yeah, sure she is. And so it's interesting to me. It's like, okay, that's the first. And then from there, there's others that are brought into. And the thing that's the most subversive about it, okay, it's not even just the vampire storyline. Okay, here's the thing. It turns out, spoiler warning, it turns out that the only reason why all of these black people are in the same place, in the same location, is because someone who's a human, who is an active KKK member, somehow, again, knows about the vampire, and therefore sets them up to basically be slaughtered by these vampires, and then comes in the next day so that they can then clean up everything else with guns and everything to kill everybody. It's, again, that's the story that's being told. So it's one thing if you're setting a movie during a time frame, a time period with those things there, but when you're having now, okay, the vampires are going after them, and then it's all actually a setup by the evil white men who are the members of the KKK. It's like, okay, really? This is the storytelling that we have right now? Do we have to have yet another one of these movies? Lord. Hardwick. For me, the issue with Sinners wasn't so much the content itself as the message being pushed by it. Ezekiel 23 has graphic sexuality, but repudiates sin. Sinners glorifies adultery. Yeah. And the people who are trying to say, like, oh, it doesn't really portray them as good or as bad, it's like, no, it definitely tries to act like, oh, yeah, this is normal. This is how it should be. Let's see. Carl Jacobs. Odin being anti-war is not a coherent position, and where a nation should fight is always a prudential decision. You can't make blanket judgments. Whoa, Carl Jacobs. Hold on. Anti-war absolutely is a coherent position. That does not mean that I think all war is bad in every circumstance. There are times when you have to defend your country. I don't know if you heard that part or not, but I definitely said that. Being anti-war means we should not be going to other countries that we have no business in being in. I'm sorry, but you cannot tell me how we can justify being in Iraq, in Afghanistan, because that's where these, again, specifically talk about warfare, that's where that film is set. I forget which one it is, but it's one of those two. We had no business being there, and it cost countless American lives, and for what? Honestly, for what? Don't even get me started on that, man. Hardwick. I watched Breaking in the Habits review of Sinners. His stance is that it's an anti-Christian movie, but useful for Christians to watch as a way of understanding countering its message. Okay. That makes much more sense. Okay, he actually had a good take for once. That's nice. So yeah, I would say that's definitely a good message for sure. Yep. Jimmy A. Lecrae is a Christian rapper who openly admitted the movie is anti-Christian, but still endorsed it. He also tried to justify being at a disgraced rapper's party. Yeah, definitely doesn't sound like he is a good person. King and Rumsky. Speaking of Conclave, why do Cardinals concern themselves with climate change? How is that even connected to Catholicism? It is actually, in fact, it's very Christian for us to be concerned. Now, here is the caveat I want to add before people start going, how dare you? We are called to be stewards of the earth. We are given dominion over the earth, but dominion does not mean, oh, we have complete ownership of and can do anything we want with and should have no care at all for our planet. Especially because what we do to our planet affects future generations. The issue that comes about is when people try to, and there are definitely prelates that try to turn it into a we should, almost like be a tree hugger. It's like, no, that's not what Scripture points to, and that's not what the church's tradition points to either. That's why I think that Pope Francis's Laudato Si, which is all about climate change, goes way too far. Because for one, it's not the position of the church or the role of the church to get involved in scientific matters that are being actively and openly debated. There is no general consensus, or universal consensus, I should say. There is no universal consensus as far as what is climate change, who is causing it, what actually is it. Is it something that is changing constantly, right? Because at one point it was global cooling, then it was global warming, and then it's just climate change, which is a very ethereal thing. It's like, well, hey, the climate's always been changing, right? So it's like, okay, is there any rapid change that is happening? Can it be quantified? Can it be fought in any way? That's the realm of scientists to deal with. That's not the realm of the church to deal with. So it is a position of the church, though. No, we should care for our home. We should care for our environment. We shouldn't pollute. If there are better ways for us to live that helps our planet, we should live that way. Not for our planet as some ethereal thing, but because, hey, we as humans need our planet to survive. And we should therefore preserve our planet so that future generations can also be supported by the planet as well. There shouldn't be anything controversial about that. I think that it's become such a political topic. That's the problem. It's become so politicized on either side that any talk or conversation about recycling or about conserving energy or about other things that really should not be politically hinged become so. Because notice at no point did I say, oh yeah, you should be forced to do this. You should be forced to do that. It's like, no. If there is actual evidence that recycling can be very effective and productive and everything, but we know oftentimes with recycling, it also produces quite a bit of byproduct as well. There was a long time. New Orleans is a great example of this. New Orleans used to have a recycling system. Turns out, oh yeah, all the recycling was being sent over to China. So it's like, wait a minute, how much of the environment are we actually saving here? How much help are we actually doing? Or are we actually hurting things more in the long run? One thing that I learned from my wife, because my wife is we're very different people in this regard. Okay, she is much more in the green movement of things, right? But I think that one of the beautiful things is that I think on this issue, we've actually helped each other quite a bit. Because one of the things that I was able to research and find out more about and was able to kind of change her mind, and she also was able to pull me along too, is about paper. All right? Because some people think, oh, recycle paper. That's actually a really bad metric. It's actually a bad method because it actually is very much what you need to actually use to produce recycled paper. It's actually really bad for the environment itself. But the better thing to do is actually to use paper, but to use it from farms of younger trees that are actually grown specifically for paper products. And it's like, no, I think that's actually a good thing. Preserve our rainforests, our ecosystems. That's a good thing. And then I could still get to use paper. And because we actually have a lot of these farms, it's actually more cost effective. That's a good thing. There's a way of actually being very green. Again, that word green has so many connotations today. There's a way of being green and still coinciding with the gospel and still coinciding with Catholic social teaching. And I think that that's the balance, unfortunately, that we're missing. Anyway. Hardwick. Haley Steinfeld in real life and her character in Sinners are both 1/8 black. Is she really? Whoa. Okay. Did not know that. Kudos to them, though. Carl Jacobs. It is actually very easy to justify Iraq, too. Oh, goodness. That's why I said the decision to fight is prudential. It's not just about defending your own border. How can you justify Iraq? What did we actually do? Are you telling me that the amount of human lives lost and the amount of money we put in actually made enough of a difference to change things? I'm sorry. How many more issues, how many more problems do we have here that money could have gone to? How many more American citizens could that have helped? We should not be the policemen of the world. Don't get me started, please. Justin C. Have you been keeping up with Mobland? If so, thoughts on the latest episode? I have not, but I finally have time. So hopefully this week. Jose Taco. Hi, what's going on, Jose Taco? Thanks for being here. Hardwick. Oh my gosh, Hardwick. Oh, I almost forgot about that scene. Oh yes, I especially hated when the Lord's Prayer is in Sinners. The way it's set up could have been great. Divine Smackdown scene like the arc opening scene in ROTLA, but subverted its potential. Yeah. And I don't mind spoiling it because I don't mind spoiling films that I hate. And yeah, in Sinners, there's a moment when all of the humans that are still alive begin praying the Lord's Prayer, and then the vampires join in saying the Lord's Prayer. So they're already setting up beforehand of, oh, all of those old tropes about what works on vampires. Oh yeah, it actually turns out these are things that are there. But then there's no actual given power to Christian symbols and Christianity. It's just, again, yeah, very anti-Christian film. Cthulhu, the Arctic is still unnavigable from the ice, but every breath you take in is filled with plastic. Never mind the horrific poison China and India sends into the air is addressed. Again, yeah, that's where our focus should be, for sure. And that's why I said there is an actual proper way to go about that. I don't think the things that are being done currently are there. In fact, I would say, you want to do the best thing for the environment? Nuclear power plants. Talk about a lot of energy, cheap energy, and eventually, guess what? You wouldn't need to rely on fossil fuels as much, and so you'd be able to conserve your reserves of fossil fuels as well. And that's why, again, I'm not saying I know this, but it would not surprise me if a lot of powerful people in the coal, more so really in the oil lobby, has some control over politicians not endorsing nuclear power plants. Because think about it, right? If those started to go up, if those started to become very, started to produce all the energy that it could, guess what? That would absolutely cut into their overall profits. Now, if they start to actually buy and produce and create those same power plants, okay, that's how they can get in, okay? But I could definitely see how there could potentially, at least maybe years ago, right, decades ago, if they were a part of the lobby against nuclear power and nuclear energy. Wouldn't surprise me. I'm not saying that they're all bad, by the way, either. I'm just saying, again, it's more of a realistic business decision. Yes, the Morak, the best speech on green is from Landman. Totally agree. Yeah, because a lot of the stuff that we call green really isn't. Jimmy A. I did not know Haley Steinfeld was 1/8 black until recently. I always assumed she was white or Latina. Yeah, I did not either. Ken Rumsky saying, if 1/8 Steinfeld had kids with quarter black carrot, what percentage black would Scott Steiner say the kids? At first I was like, oh no, where are you going with this? And then you had to add Scott Steiner in. Oh man, I guess he would say 1624, 1/32. I don't know. What's his math? I don't have his speech memorized. Jimmy A. Sinners, it goes to show that maybe the ancestor and idol worship in Black Panther is not a fiction device, but some of Ryan Coogler's actual beliefs. That's a fair point, Jimmy A. Jose Taco, Odin, thoughts on horror films having a resurgence in theaters? Not a fan of them, but I see becoming more popular in these days. I mean, this is kind of, here's the thing though, Jose Taco, all right? It's not really a resurgence, okay? Because horror films are the only genre that have consistently done well, even since the COVID times. And it's a very simple formula. You have an audience that's dedicated, you give the audience what they want, and then you spend as little money as possible. If you do all those things, you make profit. You do really, really well. It's actually a very straightforward position. So it's not really that's why I wouldn't say it's really a resurgence, because they've been doing well, especially in comparison to a lot of the bigger budget films. All right, we're going to start to wrap things up pretty quickly here. See, Carl Jacobs, I wouldn't have said it if I couldn't justify it. You're not considering the risk of what might otherwise have happened. Oh, really? From all those thousands of miles away? You do realize that much of what happened here that would have impacted our decision to going over there was based off of lies, misinformation, and also a system that could have stopped things from happening. So again, had we not done anything, nothing would have happened to us, most likely. Again, had we actually focused on ourselves and built up our own borders and build up our own security systems instead. So again, please don't. Please don't. Kick and Rumsky, LOL. Abomination, own the plot of Naked Gun 2, oil and gas companies controlling energy market. Oh, there it is right there. General Wingster, we clearly should have used that money to conquer Canada and Mexico to become the great American empire. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, that's what we should have done. Oh, I'm totally for us just, nuking the... I'm kidding. No. I'm actually much more supportive of nuclear disarmament because I don't think nuclear weapons have a real place in our world. Again, I understand the argument of having it for deterrence, and as long as really bad people with really bad governments have control of them, then yes, I think that actually does make a lot of sense. However, in general, and in the ideal society, again, this is all idyllic, of course, there's no benefit because it's like, okay, if one goes off, then a bunch of them can go off, and then all of a sudden everyone, it's that mutually ensured destruction, and it's like, okay, that doesn't seem good for anybody. Doesn't seem a benefit to anybody here. Not to mention, of course, the amount of innocent lives that are killed by such things. But that's a discussion for another day. But we're going to go ahead and wrap things up there. We obviously talked about a lot of things there. Gave my thoughts on the box office. Again, Final Destination is doing phenomenal. Best opening of their franchise, even adjusted for inflation. I've not had a chance to do the breakdown on ticket sales, but usually inflation and ticket sales go hand in hand, and so I imagine they probably also had some of the best ticket sales they've had in their franchise. And then I was also able to go into what is going to happen this weekend as far as the current projections on what is going to be made by the likes of Lilo and Stitch live action, Mission Impossible Final Reckoning. Right now, Final Reckoning is not looking good. It's not looking like it's going to do well. I'm excited for it because I did like the last one. I like the Mission Impossible franchise, but I am a bit scared because it's a 3-hour movie. And the only showtime that is nearby to me at a decent time is, I think, around the 8 o'clock time frame. And normally if I have to watch a movie at 8 o'clock at night or later, I'm at that time in my life where I start to fall asleep. I get very, very sleepy. Very, very sleepy. It's a 3-hour movie, especially. Oof. I don't know if I'm going to survive it on Thursday. We'll have to wait and see. But we talked about that. Lilo and Stitch looking like it's going to have a fantastic opening. Probably going to be well on the way to getting to $1 billion. We'll see what those international numbers are. Of course, that's going to be a huge factor. And we also talked about Final Destination, gave my review of the film, Sinners, and the various opinions on that movie. The film I think everyone should see, which is Warfare. Again, watch Warfare when you can. And also a quick word on the movie Conclave, which I finally did also watch. And Cthulhu, have a great evening. Not just a good one. Must be great. Yes, Cthulhu, you have a great one too. Caveat Ties, have a good one. Jose Taco, have a good night, chat. Good night to you. Jimmy A, good night all, and God bless. God bless to you. Will Riker, hail to you. And I just want to also give a shout out to Hardwick, because I just remembered that I had it next to me. Didn't know if I had it with me still, but Hardwick just sent me this. Just picked it up today. And so this is Star Trek Continues, the complete series, all 11 episodes. So with an unprecedented level of production quality and authenticity, Star Trek continues right where the original series ended in 1969 to complete the 5-year mission. The stories, sets, costumes, props will all make you feel like you stepped back in time to one of the most iconic series in history. Join us on the adventure. Again, very, very interesting. So I'll be very intrigued by what this is, actually, because I still need to watch the original series all the way through. And I need to watch the rest of it too. I'm going to try and get started on that this summer, and hopefully I can figure out where this, again, obviously I assume finish the original series, and then I can put these in and start watching them too. But again, shout out to Hardwick for sending that my way. I appreciate it, man. Joe Wingster saying, I forgot to ask, did Sinners address the sub-Saharan slave trade? I was waiting for that one. Victor Fontaine, thanks, Odin, for another great stream. Always good to hang with you and the chat on a Monday night. Always glad to have you here as well. Star Trek is for nerds. Caveat Ties, absolutely. Vic Munyana, said Joe Wingster. Hardwick, it picks up right where the original series ends. Perfect. All right. Anyway, you guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Be on the lookout for, box office preview. We'll go live probably sometime Friday morning. I like to wait for box office reporting to come out. And then I will maybe be able to post. I don't really do video reviews anymore because no one watches them. So it's like with YouTube, you kind of have to play that game, unfortunately. Maybe I'll have to make it like a Rumble exclusive or something like that. So that way I can still at least make them and post them. I'll have a lot more time this summer to actually do that. Summertime schedule starts next week. I will post on social media when it'll happen. It'll be probably either like a Wednesday or Thursday morning stream, like we've done in previous years, and it should be a ton of fun. But again, stay close to the socials on that. I'll post it on the YouTube community tab also for when those streams will actually take place. So anyway, you guys are all amazing and beautiful. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. See some of y'all on Friday Night Tights. See some of y'all on the Salty Saturday stream this Saturday. And as always, gotta find my Patreon video real quick. Anyway, and as always, hold on. One last quote, Odin. Twice the pride, double the fall. No. Actually, no. I the last quote for that one has to be, "I don't like sand." Actually, no, that's the wrong film. Sorry, because it's all Revenge of the Sith. Oh, it's just gonna have to be, "You underestimate my power. Don't try it." Have a wonderful rest of the night, everybody, and as always, God bless. Now for a huge special shout out to all of my Chosen of Valhalla members, starting off first with my people on Patreon, Father Luca Illick and Miss Martin Muses. Check out her YouTube channel by the same name, Miss Martin Muses. Also to my Subscribestar people, Matt317. Check out his Twitch channel by the same name, Matt317. Also a huge shout out to my newest YouTube member, Raichu. And lastly to my YouTube member, Mr. Roy. Shout out to you, good sir. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, check out the top link in the video description below where you get access to that. Also, you get access to a plethora of other things. You get your name listed at the end of every live stream and video, like you saw in those names that came up before this video started. And also access to a giveaways channel that I host over on the Discord server where I give away 4Ks, Steelbooks, Blu-rays, all kinds of stuff. So check that out if you're interested in that. Also, I have an exclusive podcast that I hold at least once a month, and it's always a good time, and you get extra bonus content with that also. So if any of that sounds interesting, again, check out that top link in the video description below. You guys are all amazing, and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.